The city glows beneath a fading sun, and inside a high-rise restaurant filled with laughter and clinking glasses, a woman sits alone at a table for five. Her name is Farah Lewis, a self-made entrepreneur, celebrated by magazines and admired by strangers, yet forgotten by the people who matter most. On what should be her night of triumph, a birthday, an anniversary, a victory all in one, she finds herself surrounded not by family, but by silence. And in that silence begins a journey of reckoning, between success and solitude, blood and boundaries, love and self-worth. This is not just a story about a woman who built an empire. It's about the cost of belonging, the courage to walk away, and the beauty of finally choosing yourself. The restaurant hums like a soft engine, glass clinking, laughter echoing, low jazz weaving between conversations. Outside, the Denver skyline burns gold in the dying sun, and inside, a single woman sits at a table for five. Farah Lewis checks her phone again. One new email, no new messages. The screen reflects her face like a question she's tired of asking. Did they forget again, or are they pretending to? She presses the phone flat against the linen tablecloth and exhales. Around her, every table is a small, flickering celebration. Birthdays, anniversaries, promotions. Hers is supposed to be all three. A waiter approaches, gentle smile, practiced empathy. Would you like me to pour the wine, ma'am? Or shall we wait for your party? Farah tilts her head toward the four untouched glasses. Let's give them a few more minutes, she says, her voice steady enough to hide the truth. He nods, but his eyes soften. He's seen this scene before, people waiting for someone who won't come. When he leaves, she glances at the empty chairs again. The seat to her left should belong to her mother, who once told her, with a sugary kind of pride, that daughters who work too hard forget to smile. Across from her should be her father, who once said, "You don't build a legacy by making lotions, sweetheart. That's hobby money." And next to him, her brother Theodore, the golden one, who somehow always got rescued before he ever hit the ground. Farah swirls the wine in her glass anyway, because if she waits for other people to start the celebration, she'll be drinking air. Her phone buzzes again. A notification from Forbes, how one woman built a $25 million brand from scratch. The headline feels like a stranger calling her name. She opens it, sees her own photo, confident, polished, standing in her laboratory with shelves of green glass bottles behind her. Verdant Alchemy Company, the caption reads. 3 years of sleepless nights and endless formulas boiled into a single success story for strangers to admire and her family to ignore. Her throat tightens as she scrolls through the comments. Inspiring, goals, this woman is unstoppable. She wonders if anyone realizes she built all of this in silence, that every unstoppable day was fueled by the kind of loneliness no motivational quote can fix. Excuse me, a voice says. Farah looks up. A man stands near the table, early 50s perhaps, tall, salt and pepper hair, the kind of posture that comes from quiet confidence. He wears a navy suit without a tie, and his eyes hold a question rather than an assumption. Are these seats taken? He asks, gesturing toward the empty chairs. They're supposed to be, she answers. Family? She nods. They're running late. He studies her face for a moment, not rudely, but like someone reading the footnotes before the headline. Would you mind, he says, if I kept you company until they arrive? It's a poor habit of mine, noticing people who shouldn't have to celebrate alone. Farah hesitates, then gestures toward the seat opposite her. Why not? You can help me make it look like I'm not being stood up by my entire DNA. He smiles and sits. Alexander Reed, he says, extending a hand. Writer. And occasional dinner companion to strangers who seem interesting. Farah, she replies, shaking his hand. Entrepreneur. And apparently, a family disappointment. Well, Alexander says, that's something we all aspire to be eventually. For the first time all evening, she laughs. It's small but real, the kind that surprises her chest. The waiter returns, eyebrows lifting slightly at the new guest. Shall I pour for both? Yes, Alexander says. It seems the rest of the party is delayed. 2 glasses filled, the air between them softens. The sound of celebration around them fades into a muted hum. So, Alexander says, tell me what kind of company gets featured in Forbes while its founder celebrates alone. Farah smirks. Verdant alchemy. Natural skincare. I started it in my kitchen. Nearly ruined my landlord's counters with essential oils before I had the formula right. He leans forward, genuinely interested. And now? Now, she says, taking a sip of wine, we've got distribution in 30 stores, and investors calling every week. I should feel proud. Instead, I'm wondering why my family can't even text me back. Alexander studies her quietly. Pride's a strange thing, he says finally. It doesn't always travel through bloodlines. Farah lets the silence stretch. She thinks of the nights she called her parents after long shifts, only to hear them talking about Theodore's new racing hobby. Of the loan she paid off for him, the credit cards she rescued, the way they thanked her with a distracted "you're such a responsible girl." Alexander's voice pulls her back. You know, he says, I once interviewed a marathon runner who said something I never forgot. He said the hardest part isn't the distance, it's the waiting for someone to cheer at the finish line. She meets his eyes. And what if no one does? Then you clap for yourself, he says simply. The words land heavier than they should. A waiter arrives again, holding a small chocolate cake with 5 candles. Shall I light them? He asks. Farah hesitates, then nods. Yes. Go ahead. The candles flicker to life, tiny flames trembling under the restaurant's warm air. For a moment, she feels like a girl again, 6 years old, wearing a paper crown, waiting for parents too busy to remember the candles before they melted. Alexander gestures toward them. Make a wish, he says. Farah looks at the flames, then at her phone screen lying face down beside the untouched glasses. I wish, she says quietly, to stop waiting for people who only show up when they need something. She blows them out. The waiter claps softly. Happy birthday, Miss Lewis. She smiles, and it doesn't break this time. Later, as they share slices of cake, the conversation drifts toward everything except family. Books, travel, the shape of failure. Alexander listens like someone collecting rare shells, careful not to interrupt their natural shape. When the bill arrives, he slides his card forward before she can protest. You didn't have to, I know, he says. But sometimes strangers get to show up where family doesn't. Outside, the night air bites with late spring chill. Traffic hums below the restaurant awning. Alexander walks her to her car, the city's streetlights painting him in bronze and shadow. Happy birthday, Farah, he says as she opens her car door. Don't let empty chairs fool you. Some people simply don't know how to deserve your table. She wants to thank him, but words stumble. Instead, she just says, maybe next year, I'll only book 1 seat. He chuckles softly. Or 2. 1 for you, 1 for whoever chooses to stay. She drives home with that thought echoing against the windshield glass. At home, the condo is quiet. Success has a sound, the faint hum of air conditioning over polished marble, the low buzz of an espresso machine she never uses anymore. She changes into sweatpants, sets the cake box on the counter, and checks her messages again. Still nothing. But something inside her feels different, not healed, not whole, but shifted. As if someone quietly rearranged the furniture of her heart while she wasn't looking. She opens her laptop and creates a new folder, Family Ledger. Inside it, she types a single document title, What I've Paid For. Then she closes it. Not tonight. Not yet. Tonight, she pours herself another glass of wine, steps onto her balcony overlooking the glittering city, and whispers into the night air, I built something beautiful. Even if they never see it. Down below, a couple laughs on the sidewalk. A car horn echoes. A siren fades in the distance. And above it all, a woman stands alone, holding her own applause, a quiet, defiant sound only she can hear. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds like a reprimand. Farah blinked awake on the couch, still in last night's clothes, the half-empty wineglass balanced precariously on the coffee table. Her phone glowed on silent beside it, one new message. Not from her parents. Not from Theodore. Just a calendar reminder, investor call with Keystone Capital, 9 a.m. She rubbed her temples and pushed herself upright. The skyline outside her window looked like glass teeth, sharp, gleaming, impersonal. Another day to prove she belonged in rooms her family never bothered to enter. By 8:30, she was in the office. Verdant Alchemy occupied a minimalist loft downtown, concrete floors, white walls, light that fell like clarity. She'd chosen it deliberately. She wanted her workspace to feel clean, free from the clutter of history. But today even the air felt crowded with ghosts. Emma, her assistant, appeared at the door holding 2 coffees. "Morning, boss. You look like you wrestled a storm." "I won," Farah said, forcing a smile. "Barely." They went over the investor deck, market projections, sustainable sourcing stats, new packaging line. Everything was where it should be, but her concentration frayed around the edges. When the Zoom window pinged open, James Harrington's face filled the screen, silver hair, steady tone, investor calm. "Congratulations again on the Forbes feature, Farah. You must be proud." "Thank you, James. We're scaling faster than forecast." She hit the numbers perfectly. Growth charts climbed like sunrise, investor confidence held steady. Yet when the meeting ended, she sat motionless, staring at her reflection in the black screen, a woman who had built everything people admire, and still felt invisible where it mattered most. Emma knocked again. "You okay?" "I'm fine." The word fine caught in her throat. "Just tired." That evening, she opened the laptop again. The folder from last night waited, Family Ledger, its icon glowing like a dare. She double-clicked. A blank document opened, white and merciless. For a long time, she only stared. Then her fingers began to move. Theodore, motorcycle loan, $18,000 6 months rent, $5,400 fishing boat repairs, $2,100 emergency credit card payment, $1,200 line after line, the list grew. Every "you're such a good sister." Every "we'll pay you back." Every time she had swallowed resentment and said of course. At $47,000, she stopped counting. The number sat there like a confession she hadn't meant to make. Her breath came shallow. She saved the file and closed it. For the first time, she didn't feel like the responsible daughter. She felt like the unpaid creditor of her own childhood. A chime interrupted the silence, an email from an unknown address. Subject line, "Loved your story, dinner sometime? Alexander." She smiled before she could help it. "Your company's story reminded me of something I once wrote about: endurance. The way you carry yourself, it's not just business, it's survival with polish. Care to share another glass of Cabernet?" She typed back before logic intervened. "Tomorrow evening. Ellison's. 7 p.m. This time, I'm reserving only 2 seats." Ellison's glowed softer the second night, or maybe Farah did. Alexander arrived precisely on time, rain on his coat shoulders, a kind of unhurried composure that made the noise of the world step back. "You look rested," he said. She laughed. "I haven't slept properly in a week." He smiled knowingly. Rested doesn't always come from sleep. They ordered wine and small plates. Conversation unfolded easily, his years as a journalist, her obsession with scent chemistry, the shared curiosity about how people break and rebuild themselves. At one point, he asked, "Have you ever forgiven someone who never apologized?" She hesitated. "Constantly." "What does that feel like?" "Like building a bridge alone, then realizing they never planned to cross." He nodded, eyes reflective. "Sometimes bridges are for us, to walk away clean." The words slipped into her like medicine she didn't know she needed. Later that night, after he'd walked her to her car again, Farah sat behind the wheel, rain streaking the windshield, and realized something unsettling. She wasn't just angry at her family, she was addicted to waiting for them. Every message she sent into that group chat was a test she already knew the result of. Will they remember me this time? She turned on the wipers, clearing the glass. The city ahead shimmered, 1,000 small reflections pretending to be stars. Maybe it was time to stop performing the role of the unacknowledged daughter. 2 days later, her phone finally rang. "Mom." "Farah, honey. How are you?" The voice was sugared, upbeat. We saw your interview. You looked so professional. Farah leaned back in her chair, letting the sarcasm wash over her. Thanks, Mom. Listen, her mother continued, Theodore's racing team is looking for sponsors. Just a small amount, but he thought maybe Verdant could. Farah closed her eyes. Mom, Verdant doesn't sponsor individuals. You know that. Oh, come on, sweetheart. Family helping family, it would look good for publicity. I'm not sure our customers buy serum because my brother drives fast cars. A pause. Then the tone shifted, soft, guilt-tinged. You've changed, Farah. Money's made you cold. Her grip tightened on the phone. No, Mom. Money made you call. Silence. Then the click of disconnection. Farah set the phone down gently, as if it were made of glass. The following week, the Denver Tribune requested an in-person interview. She agreed, public calm was her armor. In the studio lights, she wore emerald silk again, but this time it wasn't armor, it was declaration. The interviewer asked about her upbringing. Farah hesitated, then smiled. My family taught me everything about resilience. Mostly by forgetting to show up. The crew chuckled. The interviewer didn't press. Afterward, she stepped outside into crisp mountain air and saw Alexander waiting by his car. Brilliant line, he said, holding out a coffee. Resilience through absence. She took the cup. It wasn't a line. I know. They walked without destination, the city swelling around them. You ever wish they'd just say sorry, he asked. Farah looked at the distant ridges of the Rockies. I used to. Now I just want peace. Peace and apologies rarely travel together, he murmured. She sipped her coffee. Then I'll choose peace. A week later, she got another call, this time from her father. He started without preamble. Your mother's upset. You hung up on her. She hung up on me. Farah, don't make this difficult. You've always been the reasonable one. That phrase again, reasonable one. The title she never applied for but always earned. Dad, she said evenly, I'm not an ATM. Theodore's choices aren't my debts. He sighed. You wouldn't have what you have without us. Something inside her snapped, quiet, not loud. You're right, she said. I wouldn't. Because you taught me exactly what not to depend on. She ended the call before he could respond. That night, she reopened the family ledger. At the bottom, she added a final entry, emotional interest, 15 years, uncollected. Then she printed the document and placed it in an envelope. On the front, she wrote, transparency for future collaborations. She didn't plan to send it, not yet. But she wanted it ready. A mirror for when they came knocking again. And she knew they would. The next morning, Emma walked into her office, tablet in hand. We just got an email from your brother. Farah's pulse skipped. Already? Emma nodded. He's pitching some kind of joint venture, Lewis Racing x Verdant Alchemy, says it'll boost both brands. Farah smiled without warmth. Forward it to legal. And send a polite decline. Emma hesitated. You want me to CC him? Yes. Let him see it's official. The reply went out at 9:13 a.m. By 9:30, Theodore's response came back, short and sharp, wow. Guess money really changes people. Farah stared at the screen for a long time. Then she whispered to herself, maybe it finally changed me into the person I should have been. That evening, she met Alexander at a small bookstore cafe. The rain had followed her again, smearing the windows with watercolor gray. He was flipping through a worn notebook when she arrived. You look lighter, he said. I think I finally sent my family an invoice. He chuckled. Did they pay? Not yet. But I sent it anyway. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the air thick with the smell of espresso and wet pavement. After a time, Alexander said, do you ever wonder why the people closest to us are the last to believe in us? Farah traced the rim of her cup. Because they're too busy remembering who we were to see who we became. He nodded slowly. Then maybe success isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. Farah smiled, not the brittle kind she'd mastered, but something quiet, real. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle. I'm thinking of starting a foundation, she said suddenly. For women who build things alone. Alexander's eyebrows lifted. That's not just business. That's legacy. She looked out at the wet street where reflections of neon signs rippled like invitations. Maybe it's both. When she returned home that night, she didn't check her phone. She didn't need to. The silence was still there, but now, it sounded less like neglect and more like room. Room to breathe. Room to build. Room to become something beyond waiting. And somewhere, folded neatly in a manila envelope on her desk, the family ledger waited too, not a list of debts anymore, but a promise, that next time they called, she'd answer differently. Not with anger. Not with apology. But with clarity. Because clarity, she realized, was its own form of love. The morning started with light, thin, deceptive light that made everything look clean. By noon, that light would be gone. Farah arrived at the office early, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Emma's text from 6:42 a.m. was waiting, urgent, call me ASAP. Something strange on social media. She frowned, unlocking her phone. Theodore's profile appeared first. His latest post had already racked up 3,000 shares and an avalanche of comments. Some people think success means forgetting where you came from. Family built her, and now she acts like we're dirt under her designer shoes. Blood should matter more than money. Below it, old family photos, her graduation, their mother's birthday, the fishing trip she wasn't invited to. And a tag at Verdant Alchemy. Farah's throat tightened. She scrolled. Her company's official account was being flooded with comments, half curious, half cruel. Did she really ditch her family? Rich people always forget who helped them. Cancel the brand. No loyalty. God, she whispered, fingers trembling. When Emma stepped into her office minutes later, Farah had already pulled up analytics on the website. Traffic had spiked, wrong kind of spike. Negative engagement, a social wildfire. I've flagged it for PR, Emma said, voice tight. But, someone leaked photos of your house, too. What? On a Reddit thread, claiming it's proof you used family money to start the company. Farah froze. The very accusation she'd spent years disproving had resurfaced like a ghost. I mortgaged my condo. Every cent was mine, she said, as if defending herself to a court that would never hear the evidence. Emma hesitated. Theodore gave interviews to a podcast, Sisters Who Betray. It's trending. Farah laughed, a hollow, disbelieving sound. He turned it into content? The laughter cracked mid-breath, collapsing into silence. By midday, the office buzzed with tension. Reporters called. Investors emailed. Someone from the PR team suggested releasing a family statement, neutral, polite, emotionally sterile. Farah refused. I won't issue a press release for my own pain. She closed her laptop and walked to the balcony. The city stretched below like a grid of choices she couldn't unmake. Her hands trembled on the railing. When her phone rang again, she answered without checking the name. Farah, her mother's voice, soft, measured, slid through the line like smoke. What on earth is happening? Theodore's devastated. He's devastated? He's the one, sweetheart, you've humiliated him. Everyone's talking. You could have just helped him instead of making him feel small. Farah's pulse surged. Mom, he went public with lies. He dragged our name, my company, my team. Oh, stop being dramatic. It's just a misunderstanding. You know how sensitive he is. The word sensitive cracked something in her. The old script again, excuses for him, silence for her. You taught me to clean up his messes, Farah said. But this time, I won't. Her mother's sigh was heavy with practiced disappointment. You've really changed, Farah. Yes, Farah whispered. That's the point. She hung up. An hour later, a message pinged from Alexander. Saw the headlines. Don't engage yet. Let the storm burn itself out before you rebuild. She texted back, I can't just watch him destroy what I built. You can. Because truth doesn't need a megaphone. She stared at his words. Then at the phone. Then at herself in the reflection of the glass wall, composed, precise, unraveling. For the first time in years, she left the office early. Home. The silence greeted her like an old adversary. She poured a drink, sat on the couch, and opened her laptop again. The comments had doubled. Screenshots of her Forbes article now circulated with captions like, "When family money meets fake independence." The irony was vicious. She'd built everything alone, and now people believed she hadn't built any of it at all. The doorbell rang. Alexander stood outside, rain dotting his shoulders. "I came as a friend," he said softly. "Not a rescuer." "I don't need rescuing." "Good," he said, stepping inside. "Then maybe I can keep you company while you remember that." She sank onto the couch. "I want to scream at him." "I know. He's lying." "I know that too." He sat across from her, steady as stone. "Theodore's desperate. His identity depends on you being his safety net. You've cut that cord. He's panicking." "Then why does it hurt so much?" "Because pain doesn't care about logic." Her eyes brimmed. "I tried to love them the right way. The patient way. The unconditional way. And maybe the right way now," Alexander said, "is loving them from a distance." Silence filled the room like smoke. 2 days later, Keystone Capital called. James Harrington's tone was careful. "We've received inquiries about your company's origin. Just routine vetting, of course, but I wanted to hear from you directly." Farah swallowed hard. "James, I never received family funding. My financials are transparent, check the filings." "I have," he said. "Everything checks out. But you know how perception works. We might need a short-term pause on expansion announcements until things settle." "Pause? Only optics, Farah. Investors hate drama." She thanked him and ended the call, but when she set the phone down, it felt like setting down a part of herself. Her company, her fortress, her clean, ordered world, suddenly fragile. That evening, she did something she hadn't done in years. She drove back to her parents' house. The old suburban street looked smaller, suffocating. The porch light was on, haloing the chipped paint on the railing she'd once fallen against as a kid. Her mother opened the door, surprise flickering to guilt. "Farah. You shouldn't have come, your father's upset," then let him stay upset. Inside, the house smelled the same, lavender cleaner and nostalgia turned sour. Theodore's trophies still lined the hallway. Junior state champion. Regional finalist. Her own framed degree was tucked at the far end, half-shadowed behind a potted fern. The living room was warm, suffocatingly so. Her father looked up from the recliner, newspaper folded neatly beside him. "Well, look who decided to remember her family," he said. Farah kept her coat on. "I came to ask one thing. Did either of you know about Theodore's post before it went live?" Her mother's silence was an answer. Her father cleared his throat. "He told us afterward. We advised against it." "You advised?" Farah's voice cracked like thin ice. "He tagged my company, Dad. Do you realize what that does to my business?" "You made your choices," he said evenly. "Now live with them." It wasn't anger, it was the familiar condescension of a man convinced his daughter's success was an accident of luck. Farah stared at them both. The weight of years pressed against her ribs, the endless second-place dinners, the phone calls that never came, the birthday that no one showed up for. Finally, she said, "I used to think I needed your approval to be whole. But I think what I really needed was to see this clearly." Her mother reached out, voice trembling. "Farah, honey, you're emotional. Sit, let's talk." "No," Farah said, backing away. "You talk when it's convenient. I'm done performing daughterhood like it's a debt." Her father muttered something about arrogance, about forgetting who raised her. Farah turned to leave. "You didn't raise me," she said quietly. "You just kept expecting me to fix the messes you allowed." She closed the door behind her before tears could betray her strength. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. She leaned against her car, shaking. Her phone buzzed again, a voicemail from James Harrington. "I saw your brother's podcast has gone viral. Don't worry, Farah, people are fickle. But if this continues, board members might ask for a statement. Keep me posted." She stared at the city lights flickering in the distance. Somewhere inside her chest, fear and fury collided until they became something else entirely: resolve. If Theodore wanted an audience, she'd give him one. On her terms. The next morning, Verdant Alchemy released a video statement. No corporate polish, no scripted PR. Just Farah in her office, hair tied back, eyes steady. "People love stories about betrayal," she began. "But sometimes, betrayal is simply truth refusing to stay quiet." She told them everything, without venom, without apology. How she mortgaged her home. How she built the company alone. How love without respect becomes currency, and how some debts shouldn't be repaid. Within hours, the clip went viral. Not as scandal, but as revelation. Hashtag Farah Speaks trended. Comments shifted, finally someone said it. This is what boundaries look like. She didn't lose family, she found peace. The storm turned. That night, Alexander arrived with champagne. "You detonated the internet," he said, grinning. Farah laughed, a sound that startled even her. "Feels strange. Like I finally exhaled after holding my breath for a decade." "Truth has oxygen," he said. "You just gave it air." She poured 2 glasses. The city glittered outside her window. "To boundaries," he toasted. She clinked her glass against his. "And to finally ending the family business of guilt." They drank. Silence settled, not heavy, but clean. For the first time in her adult life, Farah didn't feel like she was waiting for anyone to clap. She'd built her own applause. And this time, she didn't have to share the stage. 2 weeks after hashtag Farah Speaks ignited the internet, the world looked different. Not louder, just clearer. Verdant Alchemy sales had surged 30%. Journalists wanted features, podcasts wanted exclusives, and strangers wanted to tell her how her video had helped them cut off someone who only called when they needed money. But inside, Farah felt an ache she couldn't quite locate. It wasn't guilt, exactly. More like the echo of something that used to hurt. Silence, she realized, has its own withdrawal symptoms. She was reviewing production reports when Emma appeared at her door. "You might want to see this," Emma said, handing over her tablet. On the screen was a photo of her brother and mother, seated at a morning talk show set. Bright lights, sympathetic host, polished smiles. The cheer in red, the family behind the viral business feud, a mother's plea for reconciliation. Farah stared at the image for a long time, saying nothing. "They're live right now," Emma added. "They said you cut them off emotionally and financially." Farah pinched the bridge of her nose. "Of course they did." Emma hesitated. "You want me to draft a response?" "No," Farah said quietly. "No more statements." She turned off the tablet, but the still image burned behind her eyes, her mother's hand resting theatrically over her heart, Theodore's practiced sorrow, the audience's collective murmur of pity. It wasn't anger that rose in her chest this time. It was something heavier. Something like mourning. That evening, she called Alexander. "They went on television," she said. "National. They're painting me as some kind of monster." "I saw," he said. "They're getting sympathy clicks. But sympathy fades faster than truth." Farah sank into her sofa, the leather sighing beneath her weight. "It's not about sympathy. It's that they believe it now. They've rewritten history so many times they don't even remember what's real." Alexander's voice softened. "People will protect the version of the story that lets them sleep at night. So where does that leave me?" "Awake," he said. "And honest." For a while, neither spoke. The silence was comfortable, if fragile. Finally, Alexander asked, "If you could say one thing to them, without cameras, without witnesses, what would it be?" Farah thought for a long moment. "I'd ask why it was so easy for them to love me when I was useful. And if they answered?" I don't think I'd believe them. The following morning, her assistant handed her a letter. Courier delivered it by hand. No return address. Farah recognized her mother's handwriting instantly. Elegant, precise. A woman who'd always been more careful with penmanship than with words. She unfolded it slowly. Farah, your video hurt us deeply. You've turned strangers against your own blood. Your father can't sleep, Theodore is getting hate mail, and I can't walk into the grocery store without whispers. We forgive you, but you need to make things right. Apologize publicly. Take down the video. We can rebuild this together, Lewis Beauty and Verdant Alchemy. A family brand. Don't throw us away over pride. Love, Mom. Farah folded the letter carefully, as though it were an artifact from another life. Emma knocked. We've got a meeting with Keystone at 3. Farah looked up, expression unreadable. Postpone it. That night, she drove. No destination. Just the hum of tires on asphalt, the steady rhythm of a mind unraveling and rethreading itself. She ended up at the edge of Boulder Creek, the same place she'd come years ago when Verdant Alchemy was still a kitchen dream and not a company worth millions. She got out, wrapped her coat around herself, and sat on a rock beside the water. The creek's chatter was endless, water talking to itself, ignoring her. Her phone buzzed. Alexander again. Where are you? By the water. Are you safe? I think so. Then keep talking. She hesitated. It's funny. My mother says she forgives me. But I don't remember ever asking for forgiveness. What do you want from them, really? He asked gently. She stared at the moving current. An acknowledgement that I mattered before I was valuable. Would that change anything? No. But maybe it would make the silence make sense. The next morning, she returned to the office before anyone else. The early light was cold and surgical. She walked straight to her desk, opened her laptop, and pulled up the Verdant Foundation's draft announcement, the project she'd shelved during the chaos. Verdant Foundation, empowering women to build independently and with dignity. She read the tagline twice. Then, with sudden certainty, she added a new line beneath it, no one should owe their family proof of their worth. Her cursor blinked. A heartbeat of truth. She hit save. At noon, Emma entered, nervous. You have visitors. Who? Emma hesitated. Your mother. And Theodore. Farah's pulse stuttered. They came here? They said they'll wait in reception. Through the glass wall, Farah saw them, her mother in a pale blue coat, Theodore in his casual luxury, both out of place amid the sleek, professional hum of Verdant Alchemy's headquarters. She could feel every eye in the office discreetly watching. Emma whispered, Do you want me to ask them to leave? Farah inhaled slowly. No. I'll handle it. She stepped into the reception area. Mom. Theodore. Her mother smiled too quickly. We wanted to surprise you. Theodore held a glossy white bakery box. We brought cake. Chocolate raspberry, your favorite. The gesture was disarmingly familiar. Too familiar. Farah's heart sank with déjà vu. She gestured toward a private conference room. Let's talk. Inside, her mother perched gracefully at the table, surveying the room. You've done well for yourself. Such a modern space. Why are you here? Farah asked. Her mother sighed. To fix things. The video, the interview, the endless gossip. It's tearing the family apart. We need a united front. Theodore leaned forward, tone slick. Lewis Beauty x Verdant Alchemy could crush every competitor. We'd both win. Farah felt the heat crawl up her throat. You came to sell me a merger? It's not selling, it's family, her mother said sweetly. We're stronger together. Stronger? Farah echoed. When you went on national TV to humiliate me? Her mother's expression tightened. We didn't humiliate you. We defended you. But you've been so cold. Everyone thinks you hate us. Farah's voice sharpened. I don't hate you. I just stopped enabling you. Theodore scoffed. You're making this harder than it has to be. You owe us, the word "owe" detonated something inside her. She stood abruptly, palms flat on the table. No. I don't owe you another cent, another statement, another ounce of peace. Her voice rose, not in anger, but in clarity. I begged you to come to one dinner. One. And you didn't even text. When I co-signed your loans, Dad thanked me by helping you pick new exhaust pipes. When I mortgaged my home, you said it was a risk. Now you show up with cake and cameras, and call it love? Her mother flinched, eyes glistening. We only wanted what's best for you. No, Farah said quietly. You wanted what's best from me. Theodore opened his mouth, but she lifted a hand. Don't. Not here. This office isn't your stage. This is the life I built when you weren't looking. Her mother rose slowly. You'll regret this. Maybe, Farah said, her voice calm now. But at least the regret will be mine. They left without another word. When the door shut, Farah stayed still. The cake box sat untouched in the center of the table, a symbol of everything they offered too late, too conditionally. She stared at it for a long time. Then, with deliberate motion, she picked it up and carried it to the break room. Anyone want free cake? She called out. The staff looked surprised, but laughter followed. The tension broke. The box opened, and for the first time in years, something as small as a shared dessert felt like liberation. That night, Alexander came over with takeout. I heard about the visit, he said. Office gossip? Your PR director's husband goes to my gym, he admitted, smiling faintly. She rolled her eyes. Of course. He poured her a glass of wine. How are you holding up? Farah hesitated. Strangely calm. Like I've been walking barefoot my whole life and just noticed the ground stopped hurting. Alexander nodded. That's what boundaries feel like when they finally take root. They sat together on the balcony, the city pulsing below. Do you ever think people like us, Farah began, people who build walls to survive, ever learn to let others climb them? Alexander smiled softly. Only when they stop mistaking walls for shelter. Farah turned to him, eyes glistening but steady. Maybe I'm ready to let the right people in. Slowly. He raised his glass. Then to slow doors. And honest rooms. They clinked glasses. Later that night, alone again, she opened her journal. The page waited, blank but expectant. Today, they came back, not for me, but for access. I said no, and the world didn't collapse. Maybe that's what growing up really is, learning that peace can survive disappointment. She closed the journal and looked out at the skyline, the lights stretching like constellations of second chances. In her chest, the ache had softened, not gone, but transformed. For the first time, Farah felt the story turning towards something like freedom. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. 3 nights later, Farah woke to the sound of her phone vibrating against the nightstand. 3:17 a.m. unknown number. She almost let it ring out, but something in the persistence made her answer. Farah, a voice sobbed through the static. It's Mom. The sound cracked her chest open. Mom? What happened? It's Theodore, her mother gasped. There was an accident. The car spun out. He's in surgery. They don't know if, the words dissolved into crying. Farah sat upright, pulse roaring in her ears. Which hospital? Her mother gave the name, and Farah was already moving before the call ended. The city blurred past her windshield, lights smearing into streaks of color, intersections vanishing under the rhythm of her heartbeat. By the time she reached the hospital, dawn had just begun to dilute the sky. The waiting room was sterile, humming with distant machines and the low murmur of other people's tragedies. Her mother sat hunched on a vinyl chair, face pale and raw. Her father stood beside her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. When her mother saw her, she rose as if underwater. You came, she whispered, almost surprised. Of course I came. Her father's voice was brittle. He's in critical condition. Internal bleeding. They don't know the extent. Farah nodded, words failing her. They sat together in silence, a family temporarily suspended between past resentments and the thin mercy of uncertainty. Hours passed like years. The surgeon emerged at last, removing his mask with a sigh. "He's stable," he said. "But there was significant trauma. He's sedated. You can see him soon." Farah exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and grief. Her mother crumpled into tears. "Thank God." Her father murmured something about miracles. Farah just stared at the white corridor ahead, unable to decide if she was grateful or hollow. When she finally entered Theodore's room, the world seemed to contract. Machines blinked, steady but fragile. Tubes tangled around his arms. His face, so often animated with defiance, was now eerily still. She stood at his bedside for a long time, unsure whether to speak. Finally, she whispered, "You always had to take everything to the edge, didn't you?" No response, just the mechanical sigh of the ventilator. "I didn't come to forgive you," she said softly. "I think I already did, somewhere between anger and exhaustion." She brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, the same gesture their mother used to do when they were kids. "Do you remember," she murmured, "how we used to race our bikes down the hill behind the house? You'd always push past the curve just to prove you could, and I'd yell at you to slow down. I guess nothing's changed." Her voice wavered, then steadied. "You were supposed to grow up, Theo. Not just grow louder." She squeezed his hand, the way you hold a memory more than a person. Then she walked out. In the corridor, her mother was waiting. "How was he?" Farah shrugged, eyes distant. "Alive." Her mother's face crumpled. "This is all because of you," she said suddenly, voice sharp with hysteria. "He's been under so much stress since your video. Everyone's talking about him. He wanted to prove he wasn't useless." Farah froze. "Don't," she whispered. "He looked up to you," her mother continued, tears streaking her face. "He just wanted to be seen the way people see you." Farah took a step back. "You think I caused this?" "I think you humiliated him," her mother snapped. "And this," she gestured toward the room, "is what happens when pride becomes poison." For a moment, the air between them vibrated with unbearable truth, or the distortion of it. Then Farah spoke, voice low and trembling, "No, Mom. This is what happens when love comes with conditions. You raised him to believe the world owed him safety. You raised me to believe I had to earn air. And we both almost died from it." Her mother's mouth opened, but no sound came. Farah turned and walked away. Outside, dawn had broken fully, indifferent, merciless. She stood by the hospital's glass wall, watching light spread across the parking lot like forgiveness she didn't know how to give. Alexander called. "Where are you?" "Hospital. I saw the news." "Of course you did," she whispered. "Do you want company?" For the first time, she said, "Yes." He arrived an hour later, bringing coffee and silence. The kind of silence that doesn't demand explanation. They sat side by side on a metal bench, watching people come and go through the automatic doors. Farah stared at the cup in her hands. "Is it cruel that I'm angry he lived?" Alexander looked at her, not with shock but understanding. "No. It means you're honest. Grief isn't a one-lane road." She laughed weakly. "I should be relieved. I am relieved. But part of me wanted something final, something I could stop fighting with." "Maybe the fight isn't with him anymore," he said gently. "Maybe it's with the version of yourself that still needs their approval." She didn't reply. After a long pause, he added, "You don't have to keep proving you're the good one, Farah. You already were. Even when they couldn't see it." Something inside her cracked, not painfully, but like a window opening. "I don't want to be the good one anymore," she said softly. "I just want to be free." Alexander reached over and took her hand. "Then start there." Later that afternoon, she went back inside. Her father was pacing the corridor. He looked older, smaller. He stopped when he saw her. "Your brother's awake." Farah hesitated at the door. The beeping of the monitors was steady now, like a metronome counting borrowed time. Theodore's eyes fluttered open as she entered. He blinked, confusion clearing into recognition. "You came," he rasped. "Yeah," she said quietly. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Theodore whispered, "Mom says it's my fault." "Is it?" Farah's breath caught. The question wasn't manipulative, it was the first real vulnerability she'd ever heard from him. "It's not about fault," she said. "It's about what we keep choosing." He stared at the ceiling. "I just wanted to make them proud." "They already were, Theo. Just not of the right things." He winced as he shifted slightly. "You really hate me, don't you?" "No," she said after a long pause. "But I stopped letting your chaos define me." He closed his eyes. "You always sound like Dad when you're mad." "I'm not mad." She smiled faintly. "That's the difference." He tried to chuckle, then grimaced in pain. "Guess you win, huh? It's not a contest." He turned his head toward her, eyes glassy. "You still my sister?" Her throat tightened. "Always. Just not your excuse anymore." Tears slid down his temples. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I don't know for what exactly, but I'm sorry." Farah reached out and took his hand. "That's enough." And for once, it was. When she stepped out, her mother and father were waiting. Her mother's mascara had bled into her wrinkles. "He said you forgave him," she whispered. Farah nodded. "I did." Her father's jaw flexed. "And us?" Farah looked at them both, these two architects of her first heartbreak, these two people who would never understand the cost of their expectations. "I can't keep patching a roof that doesn't want to stop leaking," she said softly. "But I hope one day you learn how to stay dry." Her mother's lips trembled. "Farah, please." "No," Farah said, her voice breaking but sure. "This isn't goodbye. It's just me finally choosing to live somewhere else." She walked away before they could answer. Outside, the air was crisp. She stood by her car, watching her breath cloud in the cold. For years, she'd thought closure meant reconciliation. Now she understood, closure was sometimes just a door you closed yourself. Her phone buzzed, an email notification. Subject, Verdant Foundation launch coverage, trending #1 worldwide. She smiled faintly. Not because of the success, but because of the symmetry. She'd started her journey fighting to be seen. She was ending it by helping others become seen. That night, Alexander drove her to the edge of the overlook that faced the city. The lights below shimmered like constellations waiting for names. He turned to her. "What does it feel like?" She exhaled slowly. "Like finally breathing air that doesn't cost anything." He smiled. "You think they'll call again?" "Maybe," she said. "But I won't answer with guilt this time." They stood there for a long moment, wind weaving through their silence. Then Farah whispered, "For years, I thought love was a ledger. Now I think it's just the courage to stop keeping score." Alexander looked at her, eyes soft. "And what about forgiveness?" She smiled, small and certain. "That's the receipt." The wind picked up, carrying her words into the dark, scattering them across the city that once made her feel small. This time, she didn't chase them. She just let them go. 6 months later, spring came early to Denver. The city pulsed with that fragile kind of optimism that only happens when the snow gives up. Sidewalk cafes reopened. People smiled at the sun like it was a secret finally told. Farah walked through the glass doors of the new Verdant Foundation headquarters, a converted library downtown, its brick walls now lined with shelves of green glass bottles and photographs of women who'd received their first microloans. She paused for a moment at the entryway plaque, "For every builder who started alone." The inscription still made her throat tighten. Inside, her team buzzed with purpose. Laptops open. Voices alive. A kind of energy that didn't drain her, it filled her. Emma waved from across the room. "Morning, boss. We hit our 1,000th grant recipient today." Farah smiled. "Already? That's incredible." "They sent a video," Emma added. "A woman from Kerala said she watched your speech about independence." opened her own skincare lab. Farah's chest warmed. For years, she had poured herself into proving something to people who didn't look up from their own mirrors. Now, finally, that energy was feeding something that looked back, a community that didn't need to take from her to love her. She walked into her office. Sunlight cut across the desk, catching on the photo frames she'd placed there, not family portraits, but snapshots of beginnings. Her first lab bench. The original Verdant logo sketch. The article that called her the woman who redefined self-made. Her phone buzzed. One new message, Dad. For a moment, she just stared at the name. 6 months of silence, and now, a text. Your mother says you're doing well. I hope that's true. Theodore's therapy's going well too. He wants to apologize in person when you're ready. Maybe dinner sometime. No pressure. No pressure. It was the gentlest thing he'd ever said to her. Farah typed, then deleted, then finally wrote, I'm glad he's healing. I'll think about it. Thank you for reaching out. No promises. Just peace. Later that day, she hosted the Foundation's first anniversary gala, small, intimate, candlelit. The room hummed with warmth and quiet awe. Alexander arrived early, carrying a single white tulip. I brought the least corporate flower I could find, he said with that half-smile that still managed to surprise her. She laughed softly. You remembered I hate roses. Impossible to forget. As the evening unfolded, he watched her from the edge of the crowd, how she moved through the room, grounded and graceful. No longer performing strength, just inhabiting it. When the speeches ended, he approached. You know, he said, you look like someone who finally stopped running. Maybe I just found somewhere worth standing still. He offered his hand. Dance with me, then. And for the first time in years, she said yes. They danced slowly, without music at first, until the band found them, an old piano tune, warm and imperfect. Her cheek rested against his shoulder. His breath was steady. The room blurred, as if the world had finally decided to give her a softer focus. After everyone left, the night refused to end quietly. Rain had started again, Denver's strange spring mood. Farah stood at the open doors, watching water ripple across the street. Alexander handed her an umbrella. You'll catch a cold. I think I've already survived worse, she said, smiling faintly. He stayed beside her until the rain turned to drizzle. You ever wonder, he said, if peace feels boring after so much chaos? She thought for a moment. No. Peace is just chaos finally respecting boundaries. He laughed quietly. You should trademark that. Maybe I will. He squeezed her hand once. See you tomorrow, partner. As he left, the door clicked softly behind him, the kind of quiet that doesn't mean absence, but presence. The next morning, Farah drove back to the old neighborhood for the first time in years. The trees were taller, the houses smaller than she remembered. She parked in front of her parents' home but didn't get out right away. The curtains were half drawn. A bird feeder hung crooked near the porch. The lawn was overgrown, like a memory left unattended. Finally, she stepped out, the air thick with nostalgia and something lighter, forgiveness, maybe. Her mother opened the door before she could knock. For a moment, both women just stared. Farah noticed the faint tremor in her mother's hands, the way age had softened her sharpness. You look good, her mother said quietly. Healthier. So do you, Farah replied. Her mother smiled, hesitant. Theodore's home. He wanted to see you, but I told him to wait. Didn't want to ambush you. Thank you, Farah said. They stood in silence. Then her mother reached into her sweater pocket and pulled out something small, a folded photograph. It was old. Faded. Farah and Theodore as children, sitting on the curb with popsicles, laughing at something outside the frame. I found this last week, her mother said. I thought maybe you'd want it back. Farah took it carefully, fingertips brushing the creased edges. I'd forgotten this day. I hadn't, her mother said. You were both happy. Before we complicated things. Something in the way she said it made Farah's throat close. Mom, she said softly. I don't hate you. Her mother's eyes welled. Then what do you feel? Farah exhaled. Relief. And hope. Maybe that's enough for now. Her mother nodded, tears slipping freely now. That's more than I deserve. Farah smiled faintly. Maybe it's exactly what we both deserve. She left before the moment could collapse under its own emotion. Back in her car, she placed the photo on the dashboard. Two kids frozen in summer, unaware of everything that would break between them and everything one of them would someday rebuild. The road stretched ahead, empty, clean. She turned the ignition and started driving, not away, but forward. Months passed. The Verdant Foundation grew into something larger than she had imagined: grants, scholarships, mentorship programs. Women sent letters from villages, small towns, city corners, thanking her for giving them permission to believe in themselves. Farah read every one. And one night, as she sat in her office overlooking the city, Emma brought her an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single note: "You were right. I never learned to see you until the world did. But I'm learning. Thank you for giving me a reason to." Farah closed her eyes, pressing the note to her chest. Forgiveness, she realized, was never a gift you gave someone else first. It was the breath you finally gave yourself. Weeks later, on the anniversary of the company's founding, she recorded a short message for Verdant's social campaign. The camera light blinked red. She looked directly into it, voice steady. Success doesn't make us worthy. Worth does. Sometimes the people who raised us can't see the new versions of who we become, but that doesn't mean we stop growing. I used to think family meant forever. Now I think it means whoever stands with you when it rains. She smiled, eyes soft. And if no one stands there? Stand anyway. You'll find out you were never truly alone. The screen faded to the Verdant logo, and for a moment, she just sat there, letting the silence stretch like sunrise. That night, she drove back to Boulder Creek. The same place she'd once sat during her unraveling. The water still whispered its endless self-conversation. She took off her shoes, stepped into the shallows, and felt the cold climb her ankles. Above her, the sky unfurled in black velvet and stars. She whispered to the current, though she wasn't sure who she was speaking to anymore: her brother, her parents, or the girl she used to be. "I forgive you," she said. "All of you. Even me." The creek answered only with ripples. Farah smiled. That was enough. She sat down on the same rock, closed her eyes, and breathed. Deep. Easy. The kind of breath that costs nothing. For once, she didn't need to prove her existence. She just existed. When she finally stood to leave, the moon caught her reflection in the water, not fractured, not doubled, but whole. And as she walked back to her car, she realized something that felt like truth: the real inheritance wasn't the pain she'd carried from them. It was the strength she'd learned because of it. As the engine hummed to life and the city lights appeared in the distance, she whispered one final line to the night: not bitter, not broken, but beautifully certain: some debts are never repaid. They're just released into the wind, so we can finally breathe. And the world, for once, exhaled with her. True strength isn't proven by how much you achieve for others, it's found in learning to value yourself, even when others don't. Farah's journey teaches us that family doesn't always mean support, and love that demands your silence isn't love at all. Sometimes, peace begins the moment you stop waiting for applause from the wrong people and start clapping for yourself. You don't owe anyone proof of your worth, especially those who only show up when they need something from you.